He's quite an innovator and does a lot. So, Jack, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, cool. Okay, so big question. Can we solve a $1 trillion problem with a smartphone? Well, hopefully by the end of this you'll get an idea that there is a lot of stuff out there and anything is possible. A bit about me. I trained at UCH, qualified in '97. He beat me at squash a lot. I can't remember much else. Ended up specialising in high altitude medicine and physiology. So half of my life I'm doing this, and the other half of my life I'm in the somewhat flatter parts of the world in California, using supercomputing to help doctors make better decisions, essentially. I got into technology because of this guy. Anyone know who this is? This is Douglas Adams. What book did he write? Famous trilogy in 4 parts. Oh gosh, Generation Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And in his novel, he talked about this thing here. It was a supercomputer called Deep Thought, built by this pan-dimensional race of hyper-intelligent beings who got really bored of knowing everything, so they decided to build a supercomputer in order to find the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And Deep Thought went off for 7.5 million years and came out with the absolute correct answer to life, the universe, and everything, which was
42.
Correct, which is 100% correct, but it does show the difference between data and wisdom, which is something we'll talk about in a bit. But it did get me thinking about how brilliant the mind of Douglas Adams was and what the potential for information and informatics could be for medicine, which frankly in 98, 99 was still pretty prehistoric. There is something fairly unique about computer technology, about information processing power, in that it is increasing in its abilities faster than what's called Moore's law. Moore's law is the doubling of what information technology, data processing, computer technology can do for every dollar each year. And we are heading to a point where, really very realistically, by 2045, 2050, a $1,000 desktop will have more computational capacity than every single human brain on the planet combined for $1,000. And this is something which you guys, everyone, has to think about. We're talking about non-linear changes in technology. They are frictionless, they are happening, they are reproducible, they're reliable projections. And what we are capable of doing, of processing and getting answers to is very, very difficult for us to think about right now. But if you think about where we were in 1968 with the Apollo space program, the entire compute capability of the Apollo space program was 1,000th the compute capability of what we hold in our hands today, and cost $6.8 billion. So just think about exponentials. Exponentially advancing technology is something we can harness and we can do great things with. We've come a long way. 200 years ago, the speculum was invented. 100 years ago, we were still sticking tuberculosis into turtles to see if we could get antibodies and put them back into ourselves. And yeah, Dr. Friedman was struck off for that. That was only 100 years ago. So today, we're using big supercomputers like IBM Watson that can process 200 million pages of human-written texts per second in order to help give us statistical inference and answers about what is best for an individual patient. That's the former chief medical scientist of IBM who was pioneering that work at IBM Watson for healthcare. If anyone has seen IBM Watson play Jeopardy, the game, they'll know what I'm talking about. It's quite frightening advances in technology. He now works for me. I stole him. IBM doesn't like me very much. Okay, so where are we going to be in 100 years' time? Now, this is a big question. And to answer that, we actually have to go back in history, way before even Hippocrates, to my favourite time in all of history. Any Star Wars fans here? Okay. I'm really hoping the sound's going to work, because nothing's worked so far. Artificial intelligence is hard, audio is hard, easy, and audio-visual is hard. That's a little rule we've got. Anyway, we'll give it a go. No. Have we got any sound at all? No, we've got no sound. we're going to skip the sound, and we're going. Huh?
You do it.
Dum 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 da dum. Dum 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 dum. Okay, there you go. Right. So I did the music, but I had the Imperial March on there. Okay. So this is Darth Vader, and Darth Vader represents the future of medical technology. Not many people know this. Again, there is no sound, so imagine lightsaber noises as I'm doing this. Okay, Darth Vader had 100% burns. He had total body trauma internally. No arms and no legs. He had really bad psychological. He had some minor stuff going on, and he also had, and this was his breathing, really bad asthma. Yeah. It doesn't work without sound so well, but never mind. Blame you. You guys are the AV. So this guy had all these chronic complex diseases and so many problems, and yet he was able to run the galaxy really well. Mainly because we were able to fully understand and sense what was going on inside his body and be able to make physiological adjustments in real time. A little bit like if you're in an ICU, but he was just walking around the place. And actually, he gave me an inspiration about what we could do in order to manage complex chronic disease in our patients today. But it didn't come directly from Darth Vader, it came from his line manager, Emperor Palpatine, who, funnily enough, and this is well known, he became a patient of ours. And it was a few years back, he was rushed off to hospital on the curtain call of the press opening of a brilliant play called 6 Characters in Search of Warfare. And he suffered angina. And I'm not breaching any confidences here, this is all public domain. And his agents called us up and said, hey, you guys have got some heart people that work for you, you've got to make sure that he gets back into shape really, really quickly. And I thought to myself, yeah, well actually this could be possible, maybe we could actually monitor and find out what was going on with him before these things happened, and actually prevent the event or adjust medication in advance. That's his little bit of a side story, but he did actually teach me once how he did the electric lightning bolts at the end of Return of the Jedi, which was a great moment, and this is, in fact, the most important text message I've ever received from anybody, which is Emperor Palpatine telling me, asking me if my Jedi instincts are still intact, and that's how I became the Imperial physician, which was a great honour. But I don't actually work on the Death Star, I work here. I work at the Centre for Health and Human Performance, which I found with a bunch of other people. There's now 40 of us, scientists and specialists working together, and we use human performance science to optimise medical outcomes. And we use an awful lot of the same technology that we use in fighter pilots and Formula One drivers, the kind of stuff that used to cost an awful lot of money, and we basically help use data to get better outcomes and tune people as if you were an athlete. We work with the greatest of elite athletes out there. We also do crazy things for charity. Anyone seen Comic Relief, Sport Relief, all of these kinds of things? We do every single one of those challenges, and we've raised an awful lot of money, again, trying to help people do extraordinary things by using data. That's Eddie Izzard running 43 marathons in 50 days, Dave Williams, my colleague, Professor Greg White, who swam the Thames and the Channel, and that's me getting beaten up by Nick the Headhunter Chapman, a cage fight for science, which was a bit of a disaster. And we use really great kit. We've upgraded our cardiopulmonary experiment, but we end up producing really incredible data that not many people can understand. But it's breath by breath, sub-second level data. And this is the kind of equipment that used to cost hundreds of thousands of pounds, is coming down in price. And slowly but surely, they're actually appearing on our bodies. We're wearing them. They're going to appear in our clothes before long. Again, going back to this idea of exponentially advancing technology, do not think you need incredibly expensive kit in order to do incredibly amazing things. Like 3D printing was absolutely impossible 10 years ago. They were using lasers to do stereolithographic stuff. Nowadays you can buy a 3D printer pretty well from PC World, and it will just come down in price the whole time. So what do we do? Well, we use data in order to predict some pretty incredible things. We can pretty well tell when you're going to die, believe it or not. We can tell for a given operation whether you're going to end up in intensive care, on a normal ward, in HDU, how much it's going to cost. We can tune you in advance using data to find out exactly what we need to do in order to avoid unnecessary hospitalisation. We're pretty bad at doing anything, even remotely like this right now. Today, you start to get tracked. Maybe when you're born, you do your height and weight growth charts, about the best we've got in projecting where it is you're going to be going. And then we forget about you for about 50 years until something goes wrong. Very much unlike the aviation industry, which is when we start to ask the question, why have things gone wrong? Let me ask you this question. Would you get in an airplane that hadn't been checked for 50 years? A typical jet engine will produce about 500 terabytes of data per transatlantic flight. And it's only because we collect that data, process it, share it, and learn instantly from every mistake that is made, is aviation the safest, best, and most efficient industry in the world. Why don't we do that with our most precious asset, our human body? Big question. This is where aviation exists in terms of how safe it is and how efficient it is. Guess where medicine is? This is the profession that you guys are going to be so proud of being part of. It's about the same as mountaineering in terms of safety. Why? Because we lose almost all the data and we don't learn from it. Evidence base is a very, very small tip of the iceberg compared to actually the real amount of knowledge, data and wisdom that exists from our practice. This is me in 2012, top left over there. Ended up at this strange place called Singularity University where I tried to drag a lot of senior NHS innovators to. It's in California. It's just in the NASA Ames Research Park next to Googleplex, the HQ in Mountain View. It's full of extremely wacky people. They probably would have been hippies. They all go to Burning Man and they'd be great at parties. But they do help you to think out of the box. And it was 2 years ago where some of this stuff, which is actually pretty run-of-the-mill now, was presented to us, and it suddenly dawned upon me that the things that we have got in our centre, which cost so much money that we use on all these like elite athletes and Formula 1 drivers, etc., were costing tens of dollars, single digit dollars per day instead of hundreds of thousands. And could we use these kinds of technologies in order to tackle a $1 trillion problem, the cost of complex chronic disease? Well, I believe we could. So I came up with an idea of collecting all of this data from individual patients, putting them in the cloud and doing some sophisticated analytics on them, just like we do with people like this. Anyone know who this is? Alan Shearer. And this is stuff that we were doing with Alan versus Robbie in one of our comic relief challenges, which is we got them to sit on every seat in Wembley Stadium and see who could win. It was a stupid thing to do. But we could predict 3 days in advance of them doing it. It took them 5 days, 15 hours a day of sitting on every seat in Wembley Stadium. But we could tell that Alan was going to win because of the metrics that we were getting out of the biosensor technology. Just as a guess, just as a straw poll here, what do you reckon it cost, the actual technology cost that was wirelessly beaming his ECG, his heart rate variability, his body temperature, accelerometry, energy consumed, posture, and a whole bunch more things? How much do you think that kind of kit costs? Just think. Give an idea. £40. £40? £100. £100?
£20.
£20?
£5.
$1 a day. I'm wearing one right now. This is the Vital Connect biosensor. It's called Health Patch. It's a throwaway patch, lasts for 5 days, and it does all of this. Let me see if I can get this working. It's probably all going to break, and you're okay, here we are. I don't know if it's going to load the data because I haven't got Wi-Fi working here, but this is live. The ECG won't work, sadly, I don't think, but this is live data right now. Let me turn off Wi-Fi. If I can turn off the Wi-Fi, you guys might even be able to see my ECG. This is me. You see I'm walking around? If I lie down, it should work. Let's see. Your Wi-Fi really sucks.
Your email Sarah tomorrow.
But anyway,
I'll lie down here for a second and continue the lecture. Until it works. But here, so if any of you can see this, this is actually being beamed from my phone to America and back onto this phone. But here is a full clinical grade ECG that you can make clinical decisions from my chest on a little sticky throwaway patch that basically costs $1 a day. It's pretty incredible. And guess what this will cost in a year's time? 50 cents a day. And guess what it will cost in 2 years' time? 25 cents a day. And guess what it will cost in 10 years' time? It will cost nothing, because the value of the data is what will be valuable, not the device. That's why you get smartphones for free, and you're just paying for your data transmission. Because guess what? People are learning about you. We can learn about patients too. Okay. I'm now going to, again, screw up this whole system, see if it works. How do I press play? Help me. Am I there?
Yeah, play, yeah.
Hooray! Right, okay, there we go. So I came away from Singularity University and I thought, right, let's start a project. So as is very easy in the United States, I raised about $2 million in about a day. And I built up a little team, and we got a whole bunch of biosensors, and we created this really, really cool system that wouldn't need software engineers to help people like us write really sophisticated natural language rules that could express very, very complicated pattern recognition processes that we have in our heads when we're looking at patients on the ICU, in the wards, in front of us in clinic, that raise suspicion or help make us feel okay when we see certain things going awry. And so we built this natural language processing engine that converts these kind of rules in our head into machine code and builds sophisticated multi-nested state machines, as they're technically called, but they're just basically things that tell us where people are in our heads. And then we built a whole load of machine learning stuff behind it, which looked at people's patterns, started to predict from normal circadian rhythm where it is that the patient was going to go, what looked normal for an individual patient. And we built this system, and it was called Jointly Health. By the way, all that software that you saw that is real was built in 8 days. Not a lot of time. Okay, tons of open source stuff out there. We changed our name from Jointly Health because people thought we were either selling hip replacements or marijuana. And so we changed the company's name recently to Centrion, which is sort of like looking out there, as Tony was mentioning. And basically we use this really incredible acceleration in technology around machine learning and biosensor technology to really kind of help address the major catastrophic problem that we have in our economies of the rising cost of complex chronic disease. 75% of all of our healthcare costs come from 10% of the sickest people who are suffering essentially from 3 to 5 major conditions. And we can do a lot about it by earlier detecting what is going on and helping these people at home. This is the actual software in practice now. It's the first FDA-approved system of its kind in the world. Food and Drug Administration is the big, governing authority in America. It's being CE marked now for Europe as well. And this was designed actually by clinical case managers there's about $100 billion a year industry in the States where we have a gear between hospital and home, where disease managers actually help to look after people who are diagnosed with these very, very costly conditions. It's a bit more advanced than what we have in the UK, but we're moving in that direction. But this is being used live today on patients. And here's me ripping off a patch from Alan Shearer. So the bottom line is that we can use stuff that costs less than $1 a day to solve a $1 trillion a year problem. It sounds grand, but it's not. It's realistic. And I want you guys to go away from this realizing that with the correct application of your minds, you can also get together and do the very, very much the same thing. I am not a genius in any sense of the word. When I'm walking around my team, I feel this small. And surround yourself by people that are clever with you. They're easy to find. Yeah? So this is not about savings with no increase in budget if we are going to keep our economies sustainable. So it is all of our responsibility in the medical profession, not only to spend the money, but also to think about how to make frugal innovation. Some people say it's undoable. I think it's possible. But we have to move away from the concept of continual medical education and include continual medical innovation. In Google, which is a very interesting organization, 1 day a week is spent thinking about new stuff. When I was at medical school, I was told to stop thinking about new stuff. I'm very grateful Tony is now in charge of all this, because even if he tells me to stop thinking about new stuff, I won't. But he won't. So, what will all this technology do? Will we end up as this? Completely useless. I don't think computer technology, I don't think information science, I don't think genomics, I don't think stem cell technology, I don't think 3D printing is going to make us obsolete at all. I think, as in, if any of you have read The Hitchhiker's Guide, it'll be very much a hybrid between information science, machine intelligence, and us being the gateway and a navigator of knowledge and options together, making medicine a far more frugal and far more effective industry, and maybe one day approach the likes of aviation. I just want to end by saying, do not underestimate the power of exponential technology. Read the books about it from Singularity University. Do not underestimate the power of you lot. The fact that you're in this room means that you're already an order of magnitude further ahead in your thinking than most of your colleagues. It's the people in this room here that I hope in a few years' time will be standing on this side of the auditorium. And finally, do not underestimate the power. Thank you very much.
Fine, we go straight to the panel, we might as well. So, now we're going to move on to the panel section tonight. That basically means we're going to throw the floor open to you. You guys can ask any question you like to these three. No holds barred, anything you like. Who wants to go first?
Except difficult questions.
Go.
So, from what I've gathered, what all three of you have done really, IT is a huge factor in all of it really. I think technology and information technology are kind of coming to one, and as medics, I think a lot of us concentrate more on science and don't have that much of an IT background. Do you need it? Where can you get it from? And if you don't have it, what's the way to proceed if you're interested in innovating and doing things like this?
You can start off by going to hackathons, for example. I have absolutely no IT knowledge whatsoever. I ended up presenting at Monkey Gra a year from when our project has started. Doesn't mean that if you don't have the knowledge that makes you obsolete or less credible, but what you want to do is surround yourself with the people who have those knowledge, and how do you manage that information that they already have and bring